It was 8 years ago that I first rode these trails. It was one of the places that helped develop my love for mountain biking, so I'm really excited that I get the chance to ride here today. High Lodge at Thetford Forest is not a particularly well-known trail centre, but it is one of the biggest in the area. It's been at least 6 or 7 years since I last rode here, and I'm really keen to see how the trails have changed and been updated. I used to come here on my old Specialized hard rock hardtail, so it's only fitting that I return today on my new hardtail to see how I manage. The trail I'm riding today is the Lime Burner, a 16-kilometre red-graded trail. In this part of the country, I'm not expecting the world's longest downhill sections, but from what I remember from last time I was here, they had updated a couple of the sections to make them a bit more interesting, so I'm keen to see what other improvements they've added.
Okay, so here we go. Just left the car park. I'm really excited to have a go on this.
Setting off, it's amazing how the memories of all the sandy trails came flooding back. At this point, it was hard not to look at these trails with nostalgic rose-tinted glasses, but it really is great to be back here. This trail is pretty much dedicated single track. There are red and blue trails here, but I chose to ride the more interesting red today. This trail has a couple of black graded sections as well that take a small detour off the main track, but we'll talk about these a little later. So for the trails today, I'm riding my hardtail, the Voodoo Bizango Pro. I've been really getting on well with this bike lately, and it's the perfect choice for the trails here. It's safe to say that this is a huge upgrade from the Specialized hard rock I would have been riding back in 2014. That thing had almost no suspension and V-brakes. With all the modern kit we have today, looking back, I can't imagine myself riding that bike now. One section I do remember from my time here is the Beast, arguably the best section on this trail. But just as I moved away from the area, I remember two fun sections of trail that are being updated, so let's check those out first. With this first one, you can clearly tell the difference between the surface of this section and the more naturally surfaced parts of the trail. So when this section was redone, they put this hard-wearing surface down, and 6 or 7 years on, you can clearly see how well it's held up down the line. So this section is a winding route through the trees. It's well thought out and filled with plenty of small berms and corners. The track does a lot of undulating, with the trail constantly switching between gradual up and down hills. The berms and little jumps here are genuinely fun features. However, I found myself constantly pedaling to try and get enough speed to make the most out of it. The speed does pick up towards the end of the section where there's a little more gradient, but this isn't the fastest trail ever. This is really similar to some blue sections that I've ridden in the past. It's all rollable, not too fast, and there are plenty of features to keep you moving around on your bike. All in all, this is a well-made section of trail. It shows that the trail builders know what they're doing when it comes to building, and can do it to a good quality. Moving on to the next section of trail, as I was approaching it, it started to rain.
What's going on with this weather? It was 40 degrees 2 weeks ago.
But I'm not going to let a little bit of rain stop me. I remember this being a long bermed switchback section. It's definitely another of the better pieces of trail on the Lime Burner, and you can carry a bit more speed than the last trail. If you want to practice your corners, then this is a section for you. Although it only takes a minute or so from top to bottom, you're constantly riding in and out of corners the whole way down, so it feels way longer than a minute. Again, I had to keep putting extra pedal strokes in to try and maintain enough speed, but on this occasion, the trail being a bit flatter actually helped me out, because I kept having to take my hands off the bars to wipe the camera. But a little bit of rain can be good for grip, and the berms were actually pretty fun. They're well built for the trail, and they help to maintain the speed that you have. On a hardtail, sections like this are really fun. With the smooth or weather surface, you can really flow around the corners, and again, this helps to maintain as much speed as possible. It reminds me of an easier version of the Blue Perry's trail at Cannock Chase. This is a flowing section with the potential to help you develop your riding skills. At the very end, there's a short rock garden designed to slow you down before heading out onto the fire road, but you can easily miss this out if you want. So these two sections are fun, but they're nothing compared to the main event, the bit that I've been looking forward to riding.
So this next section is one that I remember, and I always used to really enjoy riding. It's called the Beast. It's meant to be one of the hardest sections on the Lime Burner Trail. In the past, I remember it being fast, twisty, turny, steep. I'm going to be really interested to see what I think of it now. My guess is that it's going to be really easy. Let's give it a go. Dropping into the Beast.
From what I remember, the Beast is the fastest and most interesting section on the whole trail. The first half sets you off on an undulating course through the woods, weaving left and right and up and down over various lumps. The later section is a bit more of a gradual downhill in the open woodland. The first half is on solid ground and the grip is good. You're riding on a natural surface as opposed to the packed surface from the last two trails. This means that you have all the normal lumps and bumps on the trail that make it more interesting. Being more natural, this might mean that the section is more susceptible to the weather, so it could be a bit different riding this in the wetter months, but even with a spot of rain today, that didn't affect things. The beast section feels more in keeping with what you'd expect on a red trail. It also feels like the section with the most descent on it too. Again, there's nothing here that you can't roll over and nothing that's really going to catch you out. If you're new to riding red trails, then this section is an easy option to try. Once you make it through the first part, you come onto this open woodland. Once you've finished it, there's also an easy accessible trail to the right if you want to push back up and ride this again. Out here the descent is much more gradual and the surface is loose and sandy, which is really deep if you go off course.
Oh, so sandy. That's a rubbish way to go.
There are a couple of different line choices in this end bit, so it can be worth exploring them if you have the time. This is a fun section overall, and it's easy to see why it's one of the most popular parts of the trail. Good stuff. So in total, the trail took me around an hour to ride. This includes a couple of stops for taking pictures and filming along the way. But apart from these three sections that I've just shown you, I'm afraid to say that this trail is actually quite bland. And yes, you guessed it, it's extremely flat. It's quite funny that the trail sections are all named really interesting things that conjure up a very different picture in your mind, which ultimately left me disappointed.
So this section's called Shockwave. That's quite promising. Let's hope it lives up to the name.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
Well, so far the only thing shocking about Shockwave is how flat it is.
The sad news is that genuinely, since I was here 7 years ago, the only thing that really seems to have changed is the sign at the start of the trail. It's really sad to see that my old local trail really has been left behind by the mountain bike world. Now, I should say that I'm not trying to put down anyone who rides here, because I'm sure there are loads of people who love riding these trails, as I once did. If you're looking for a little pootle around, then this trail is fine, but the issue is, this is not a red graded trail. Looking on the British Cycling website, they categorise red trails as being difficult, and describing them like this. A wide range of climbs and descents of a challenging nature will be present. Expect boardwalks, berms, large rocks, medium steps, drop-offs, cambers and water crossings. Well, I think we can agree this doesn't really describe the Limeburner Trail. Perhaps it once was a red, but the sport and equipment have all progressed and this trail and its features have been truly left behind. With the absence of steep descent sections, red trails that are in flatter areas really need to have additional features to keep themselves within the difficulty of a red trail category, which unfortunately the Limeburner doesn't. So why is this even a problem? Well, if you were to ride a trail like Thetford regularly thinking that it was a red, you'd get a nasty shock when you got to ride a red trail anywhere else in the country, because some of the red sections really have red graded features. So I'm genuinely gutted, and it's a real shame that Thetford has been left so far behind. But they don't only have red and blue trails here at Thetford Forest, there are also a number of black expert trails. So what do these look like?
So this is one of the so-called black sections here. And as you can see, if I run down here, it's a gentle slope. And that's the uphill. So there's not really any black feature here. I mean, it wasn't even tough for me to walk up. That's it. I mean, that's more of a blue feature in my eyes, really.
So some of them are just glorified dips with no difficult features whatsoever. The most exciting one that I came across was this one with a rocky entrance. But again, it's easily rollable and a hard blue / easy red at best, even with the added pressure of the audience. So putting aside the debates about the grades of trails, if anything, today's ride showed me just how much I've progressed since I started riding here almost 8 years ago. So perhaps Thetford isn't my cup of tea nowadays, but what it did do was ignite my passion for the sport, so I'll always have fond memories of riding here. And who knows, perhaps I'll visit again in another 8 years. And who knows, maybe then the trails will look a bit different. It would be great if you subscribed. Thanks for watching today's video, and I'll see you next time.